synthesis of previous literature reviews. A number of factors have been identified in the literature as influencing student engagement in the classroom and academic achievement. These influences include student motivation, teacher-student relationships, teacher attitudes and expectations, as well as parental and peer influences. The teacher has a vital role in the classroom, not only in delivering relevant content and assessing student outcomes, but also in designing tasks that engage students and meet their educational needs. Saeed and Zinja showed that tasks designed to meet the interests of students can increase their motivation to learn, and with higher intrinsic motivation, there is greater classroom engagement. While Giza found that close relationships with parents improved student motivation and, in turn, academic performance. Mao and Wright showed positive teacher-student relationships to be associated with positive academic outcomes for students. Engels et al. Also showed that positive teacher-student relationships had higher levels of student engagement, whereas more negative relationships had lower levels of engagement. This is further supported with the research conducted by Lai and Julian, who found that student attention and participation was influenced by the amount of support and respect they feel from their teacher. Students are more likely to engage in classroom activities when they have a positive relationship with their teacher. Rosenthal and Jacobson first described the effect teacher expectations have on students' academic achievement, where high expectations lead to increased student performance and low expectations lead to decreased student performance. Kaiser et al. Stated that most of the instructional decisions made by teachers are based on their own subjective beliefs and have considerable impacts on student engagement. Reddy and Wright also support this by stating the difficulty of work and teacher interactions are based on judgments, and when they are wrong, they can negatively impact on student engagement and achievement. Gieser and Wright showed the positive and negative impacts home conditions and parental support or lack thereof can influence student achievement. Students with supportive home lives and parents who help them had an increased achievement compared with students who had less supportive home lives and lack of parental support. Morales also supports this idea of parents affecting achievement by discussing family dynamics and poverty as influences on student achievement. Peer influence was also identified in the literature as an influence on academic achievement and classroom engagement. Grumman discussed the idea that students often form relationships with peers who are at the same achievement or motivational level. High-achieving students will be benefited from like-minded friends, while low-achieving students may be negatively influenced by their fellow low achievers. Engels et al. Explored the role peers have on student engagement, reporting students with greater popularity were less engaged than students with lower popularity. They went on to explain that more popular students may express to be less engaged to maintain their higher status. One method that has been shown to increase engagement in the classroom is the use of student-centered learning. Tanji demonstrated that through student-centered learning, the student is an active participant rather than an active listener. Changing teacher roles to facilitate learning rather than direct learning allows students to be responsible for their own learning and can help increase engagement in the classroom. Further investigation into the influence student-centered learning has on academic achievement would be needed.
Synthesis of data collections. 2 surveys and 2 observations were used by our group to gather data related to our research topic, with each focusing on different aspects of the topic engagement for academic achievement. One survey explored student opinions on the influences on their achievement, whilst the other looked at the benefits of student-centered learning. One observation explored student interaction and teacher attitudes, and the other looked at the connection between student-teacher relationships and achievement. Similar categories were found between each individual data collection and were organised into 3 themes: student and teacher-centered learning, student-teacher relationships, and other influences on achievement. The results from our data collection show that student-centered learning often improves student performance, and teacher-centered learning mostly led to student distraction and disengagement, supporting the idea that student-centered learning is most beneficial. This finding was evident in the observations and the student-centered surveys. The surveys at the pre- and post-student-centered learning lesson highlighted the benefits of student-centered learning, where participants were asked to assess their learning both before and after the lesson. These surveys show that students were more likely to participate in class when student-centered learning occurred, with 75% of responses indicating that students participated in a normal lesson and 100% participated in a student-centered lesson, Working collaboratively also improved with student-centered learning, with the results showing that all students worked together after partaking in student-centered learning, compared with only a few beforehand. It shows that engagement in class improved as a result of student-centered learning. The observations supported this idea, showing that lessons mostly involving teacher-centered learning led often to student distraction, disengagement, and behaviour issues. Student-teacher relationships play a significant role in student engagement. From the observations, it was found that students did not respond well to teacher instruction and teacher-centered learning throughout the lesson, and showed that students often became disengaged in response to this. Furthermore, student responses on the student-centered survey showed that 90% of students interacted with their teacher after the student-centered lesson compared to only a few beforehand, showing that student-teacher relationships improved with student-centered learning and led to students performing better in class. Responses from the general survey also support this idea, with all students commenting that they have positive relationships with their teachers. However, 1 in 5 students also commented that too much pressure and high expectations from their teachers led to fractured relationships. Several other factors were seen as contributing to and influencing students' learning and learning performance and achievement. From the general survey, responses showed that factors including peer influence, parental influence, and student perception on their own learning influenced students' achievement. From the responses, half of the respondents stated that having friends in their classes was a distraction or negative influence on their learning, which in turn affected their engagement and their classwork and affected their achievement in class.
After the synthesis of our literature reviews and data protocols, we started to design our future action research plans. So what things we could do in our future classes. These questions are based on what we have previously encountered, but it seems there was a gap in the previous studies that we undertook. And this is why our future action research will be based on how student-centered learning will benefit academic achievement, as we already know it is engaging. So 2 questions that we have devised was, what effect does student-centered learning have on academic achievement? Or does teacher-centered or student-centered learning benefit academic achievement?
This research will be done in a singular classroom, as a trial to see if improvement in results can arise from these teaching styles. This research could eventually grow into a larger project, which could focus on more than one class, solidifying or showing a different side to the results. Student attitudes will also be examined to ensure that students enjoy this mode of learning. They may be engaged in the content, but this could be due to other factors, and they actually aren't enjoying themselves. And then finally, we will review the failure of success of these modes of teaching in terms of their academic results. Based on the results of our action research study we have recently carried out, our future study would seek to answer the following questions. What effect does student-centered learning have on academic achievement, and does teacher-centered or student-centered learning benefit academic achievement? In our future study, we will collect our data by various means. These means will include observation, surveys, artifact analysis, and small group interviews. Observations will allow us to gain an insight on the effect of teacher-centered learning and student-centered learning from the viewpoint of an outsider. It is a less invasive mode to gain classroom data. When we create surveys for our data collection, we will ensure that technical terms and jargon will be avoided to ensure students are able to understand the question being asked. The questions will use language that avoids emotional leading and evocative emotions. While creating these surveys, we will have an end goal in mind to ensure that the answers provided will enrich our understanding of how student-centered and teacher-centered practices affect academic achievement. The reason for the use of surveys allows student responses to remain completely anonymous, which then consequently encourages students to answer questions in a more honest manner. Artifact analysis will consist of both informal and formal assessments to understand how teaching practices can affect a student's ability to understand the content and assess their achievement. While small group interviews will allow students to answer open-ended questions that will fill in the gaps that may arise in our data collection, this will enrich our understanding of the effect of student-centered and teacher-centered learning.
When we do our future action research, there is ethical considerations that we need to follow. Zenny, from 1998, devised some plans and questions that people should ask when they are doing their action research studies. I have chosen 4 of Zenny's main points to talk about, which I thought were important for this specific action research. The first one is students' understanding. This is ensuring that students understand that their personal information will be anonymous, but their information that they provide to the project will improve your practice as a teacher. Making sure you know what you want your students to know of this project, who told them these things, and what risks to them or their families of their knowing or not knowing what you write or collect. The next one is others' insights. Who else will read your field notes or dialogue with you to provide multiple perspectives? Incorporating quotes from other participants, especially when their views differ from yours, it can make your work richer, more informed understandings, providing more depth to your research and enriching the outcomes of the research. Another consideration is how we store and choose our data. As there is a huge pile of information that you can collect from this, we need to consider why you chose to report some data to a wider audience and why you chose to keep some from your colleagues, your students, or yourself. What do you tell and what do you store? How will you store and catalogue your data during and after the study? Who will have access? Taking special precautions with your notes and other data, ensuring personal information is not leaked and anonymity is present in your research. Then an evaluation of oneself will need to be done. Will this study evaluate your own effectiveness or a method to which you are committed? Will your findings be confirmed by observers who do not share your assumptions? Will you protect yourself from the temptation to see what you hope to see? Manipulating the data to meet the outcome you want to achieve. Making sure that your information is by the research, not for your own biases. Finally, these findings could potentially inform our practice. Findings towards these questions could ultimately determine how we approach our teaching and teaching style. As a teacher, the focus is to ensure that students achieve the best possible marks are paramount, making sure students are engaged throughout the lessons, but additionally to this engagement, students are understanding the content with deep understanding. If these styles of questions are undertaken in the future, we could shape how all teachers tackle their classes. This could mean that a mixture of teacher-centered and student-centered learning is needed by all classes, or solidify the idea that teacher-centered learning is the most effective form of teaching style for students to learn, or finally, a shift towards a more student-centered learning is needed to occur as students learn best from this teaching style. Therefore, these findings could ultimately and indefinitely change our teaching styles, determining which style will ultimately provide a link towards engagement and academic achievement for students. Additionally, dependent on the findings, we can inform the senior executive to inform other teachers, provide training, and develop facilities to evidently provide a better learning environment for our students.